Hi, I'm Rick Jansen and this is my fly tying channel. You know, one of the good habits to get into when fly fishing for trout is to pump their stomachs. This gives you a great idea of what the trout have been actively feeding on in the last half hour to an hour. And if you can, you should take some pictures of those stomach contents for closer examination later on. First impressions will often lead you to the right fly and to some good success. When I get home and I take a look at those photographs, sometimes there are subtleties of color or shape that I hadn't noticed with the naked eye. The fly that I've come up with today as a result of that closer examination, I call it the bourbon and black, or the B&B. Let's take a look at it today. Welcome to my fly bench. You know, the fly we're going to tie today isn't very difficult. It's quite a simple pattern. So let's take a look at the materials you're going to need to tie the bourbon and black. If you like this video, please tap that subscribe button on the bottom right of your screen. Thank you. Into my vise I have a number 10 Togens curved scud hook. To that I have added a 7/64 flat black bead. Now I'll tie this fly down to number on 12s and 14s, and if I want a 16 I'll tie it also on a 14 hook because the gauge of the wire is strong enough to hold the large trout we get here. So I'm moving that bead back so that I can attach my tying thread and my gills, and we'll get those gills secured on here. Just using my 8/0 black unithread here as the workhorse of this fly. Now we'll get our yarn, our Antron yarn there, and attach a set of white gills here, and we'll wrap that in place. Now I like to throw a few wraps of thread in front of the yarn behind the eye, just to set those up and cock them up away from the eye to set them at the right orientation to the rest of the fly. We'll cut off the tag end of that. Then I'll test my bead, bringing it forward, and if it's loose, then I'll keep adding thread until I feel some friction. A few more wraps, and there I start to feel friction. So I'll whip finish that, and we'll move our bead forward and then reattach our thread. Just 3 wraps with the whip finish is sufficient because we've got more to tie on top of it. And snap that forward in place, a nice snug fit, and you can see those gills sitting up nicely there from the eye, excuse me. So I'm going to reattach my black tying thread here behind the bead, again securing that in place. And our first material, which ends up being our second rib, is our small copper wire in red, and that will form the secondary rib. The primary rib will be the black body material that shows through, and we're putting this in as our secondary rib right now. And so we're gonna get that tied in on the near side of the hook here, and a couple of loose wraps to secure it, and then work our way back into the bend of the hook. I'm holding this wire on the side here. I don't like it wrapping around with the tension of the thread. I like it to stay on one side of the hook shank. So I just strike it with the thread as I'm pulling it towards me and getting that thread back into the bend of the hook here as we go back to give it a little bit of length. Our overbody is our flat silver tinsel, just common silver tinsel. You cut off a piece of that, and I will tie that in with the gold side up. This is the small. On a larger fly I'd use the medium, but I use the small on everything from number 10 on down. I'm trying to sort out the curly tinsel here in my fingers. Give me a moment. It's fighting me. So we'll give that a wrap and then draw it back, shorten that tag end up. So we haven't got too big a tag end, and then we'll Bring our thread back again, further back where our wire is, and then come forward. And we'll secure that tinsel out of the way. And again, it's gold side up so that when I'm wrapping it, it will be silver side up, showing off against that black. Our body material, our main body material, is the Unistretch thread, black Unistretch thread in the 1X, and we'll secure that in behind the bead here with a loose wrap. Pull it down to try to get that tag end down and secure that in place with several wraps. Now the key to using this Unistretch is, as you wrap it, to continually spin the bobbin below the hook in a counterclockwise direction to flatten that Unistretch. We don't want it to twist up into a bunch, and that would end up forming valleys and ridges. And so every wrap over the hook, I spin it once counterclockwise, and that keeps that floss flat, as you can see here, and that gives us the nice smooth body for the tinsel to rest on. I don't want that tinsel to encounter ridges or hollows and then cause that tinsel to bunch up. So a spin in counterclockwise direction or two every time we go over the hook, and we keep that floss flat. And we get down there right to the bend where everything else is tied in. And so now we're coming forward again, continuing that spin counterclockwise. And it will keep a body nice and flat. It's got a really nice sheen to it. That's why I like this material for the first rib on this chromy fly. And I'm spinning it counterclockwise, looking for that flattening. And then right up at the front here, we will give it a third wrap, just to build up a bit of a shoulder on the fly. There we go. And again, I'm still spinning it that counterclockwise direction until I've completed my wraps here. All right, we've got a nice looking fly there, a great taper to it. So give that a couple of turns behind, a couple in front. We'll snip that off and release it from duty. And this is where our silver tinsel is going to come forward next. And we want to leave gaps in the black because the black is our rib. So we want to get a nice 5 to 7 spirals here, and just leaving those gaps. As you can see, even gaps is more important than the exact count. And get into a rhythm and just wrap that forward, and we get a nice silver sheen on this rib to give it that gaseous look that so many chironomids have on their ascension through the water column. And we wrap that up there, lock it in place. Now our copper wire is going to come forward, the red copper wire. This is our second rib, and it just follows the black. Now I like to wrap it in just behind the silver tinsel. So there we go, we're following it. You could go either in front of the tinsel here or behind here where I am going. It doesn't really matter as long as both are there, the black and the red. We get a nice set of ribs on here that will complement this fly's colors very nicely. We're going to tie that off. Now with the wire, I like to make several wraps behind and in front, switching from in front to behind to really lock it in place. I don't like that thing to wiggle loose at all, the end to come out once I've gone to the trouble of getting this far on the fly. I'm going to use my dedicated scissors, my blue ones, for wire cutting, and I snip that off right in behind the bead. There we go. 2 wraps of that thread. Now we'll finish the black with just a few wraps because we're going to come in with our burnt orange to form the collar of this fly and really give it that pop of wing buds there. This is the bourbon part of our bourbon and black. There you go. You take a look at that, right? And that's a smart looking fly. Okay, we're going to whip finish that. Secure that collar in place. And our last steps will be to give the gills a bit of a haircut. And some UV clear fly finish and flow from Loon Outdoors. Just a drop of that on there. And move that around with our bodkin to coat the whole fly with it. This is a sharp fly, and it's the double rib on this one that really makes this fly, the black and the coppery red. And then we've got those wing buds in there in that burnt orange. I'm going to pop that with the UV light, and while that UV light's on there, I see I've got some errant yarn fibers there. So we'll just give some of those a trim, tidy that thing up, just be a little fussy there. I love the look of that fly, this especially against that black nickel bead, those white gills, and that black and red copper ribbing on the silver tinsel there. Sharp looking fly. I'm sure it's going to be tight lines for a lot of people with this fly this season. I'm going to be using it as soon as I can. Thank you for watching, and if you found this helpful, instructive, and you enjoyed it, please consider sharing it with some of your friends. Thank you for watching.